going into that hustle mode for those first 2 years and like really grinding 24/7, like sun up to sundown. I think one of the traps I fell into, which I think a lot of people do, was that I was telling myself that I was doing it for my wife and my kids.
We live in our mind, but we also have a physical body. But when we, let's say, for example, Louis grinding super hard, 16-hour days all day, every day, and then he goes and takes his family to Disney World. So now he's physically present at Disney World, but think about his thoughts. How often do you do this as an entrepreneur? Is your mind still back in the office?
You look at people like Tony Robbins, right? Obviously, extreme example, but that guy's busy, but his marriage seems to be rock steady, you know? And I think, why is that? Well, it's because she's on the same page as him. They're on this journey together, and she's like, cool, like we're on the same page. Let's do this.
Let's say you made your net worth and then you find your significant other afterwards. Not that it can't work out, but what I've seen is that like a lot of times coming from your situation where like y'all kind of, let's say you're living on the streets together, homeless, and not saying that, but like when you came up that way and you had nothing and you were together when you had nothing, then you see like these relationships a lot more, I guess, stronger when handled a lot differently than when you were that way before and then you made it together as compared to you made it individually and then you met someone after you created your network, which is also for some of you guys can be a risk because now when you are meeting people and you're successful, you're like, okay, well, why is this person coming into my life? What is their motive? As you become more successful, you're going to have fewer people around you. That's just how it is. What's going on, guys? Today, we're going to have a great podcast. This is something that we all deal with, which is work-life, family-life balance. And have you ever missed a kid's soccer game or your kid's soccer game? Have you ever missed a date with your wife? How did that go, right? Have you ever felt bad that you weren't present with your family and in the life that we live because you're tied up in the business world that we're always tied up into? That's what we're going to dig into today, guys. We got Lewi Gault on here. And if you don't know who that is, you're going to know a lot about Lewi here pretty quickly because Lewi's one of the top and upcoming rock stars in the Wolfpack Organization, closing in on 200 agents. He's doing it really quick. I'll just give him his 100 agent trophy. He's already at like 160, and I just feel like I had this trophy made. So that's how fast they're growing. Louis also an incredible entrepreneur as far as his background. He's tried lots of different things. He comes from the high-level jiu-jitsu background, which we'll probably touch on a little bit. But today we're going to talk about work-life, family-life balance, time management, how to get the best and most fulfilled life out of a business and personal life, and how to manage the two and cross over. And Louis had to deal with a lot of problems in his life around this topic, just like we all do. And he's going to have some good insight sharing with you guys how he's fixed this problem. Now, Louis, let's get you on here. So let's first start off by do a little background on yourself, about your family size and kind of, you know, your background behind the scenes of your business. And then let's kind of dig into kind of how problems can happen and maybe how you've dealt with some problems and then the journey on how to start fixing those problems.
Yeah, for sure. Well, appreciate you having me on, man. Thank you, brother. Yeah, you know what? So I'm Louis. I'm in Denver, Colorado. Obviously, not from there originally. I'm from Scotland. I grew up on the west coast of Scotland. Moved over here about 15 years ago. And my wife, Mackenzie's from Denver. So I'm here. We have two sons. Finley is 10 and Desi's 7. So you know, life is pretty chaotic. If you have kids, you know what I'm talking about. So yeah, you know, it's an amazing thing, you know, to build. And I'm always thankful every day that I actually live here because what I've built here and what I have here, I only think could be done in this country. So coming from another country to here has been an incredible journey. So yeah, this, you know, that's where I'm at. You know, we'll definitely touch on different things, but my whole goal and focus is to help agents to kind of realize their potential in not just real estate, but all of the things that real estate should be fueling, you know, all of their passions, all of their loves, all of the stuff they like to do. I feel like realtors typically, you know, the realtor is our one identity and like that's all we identify with. But really, this is a business that should fuel your freedom. So it's really how to transition from being stuck in the mud in this hustle culture to get into a place where you can actually enjoy life and start living up to your potential and who you're supposed to be. So that's what I focus on. And, you know, that's why I preach from the mountaintops.
Yep. I mean, you talk about the hustle culture and, you know, we all need to hustle and we all hustle hard as entrepreneurs. But, you know, we talked about this a little bit. Social media has kind of created an illusion, I guess you could say, on the belief system on what actually happens behind the scenes for high-level rock star entrepreneurs. And I think sometimes trying to keep the pace with the illusion is what burns us out. So maybe kind of give an idea of your perspective on that kind of hustle culture that we're dealing with, because we're not saying don't hustle, but we're also saying have some reality with living in your body and knowing that it needs to move you through every single day, not just working super hard and then burn it out and can't get up the next day. So I think this is a very important topic.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think with everything in social media, it's been blown out of proportion. It's kind of been bastardized to a level that isn't real, So like hustle is real. Like you have to hustle in this business, especially if you've got family. But it's, the culture that we see on social media, a lot of people forget that you're seeing the best part of people's lives and you're seeing the tip of the mountain and not seeing anything underneath for a lot of things. So I think a lot of us get that imposter syndrome, especially realtors. I've found that I talk to, you're scrolling through social media. For some reason, realtors follow realtors, and like, so you just see them closing deals and driving BMWs and slow motion walking with suits on and stuff. And you're like, oh my gosh, I don't do any of that. So when I first got into the business, like I fell into that trap hard. Like, I had watched like $1 Million Listing with Serhant and all those guys. And, when I first got in, I joined a team that was very much like that. It was like, we wear suits all the time. We do like these slow motion videos and like, it's kind of, which is honestly, it's fine for some people, but it wasn't me. But I fell into this culture of like, that's what I have to portray. And I have to now switch who I am to this other kind of persona. It's almost like, being a pro wrestler, it's like, those guys aren't really like that in real life. That's but right. When they come on stage, they put this thing on, you're like, oh my gosh, this guy's incredible. Right. So I kind of fell into doing that. And I think that was kind of honestly, in the long run, I look back on it now, I'm glad it happened because it was the unraveling that got me down to get me back up. But at the same time, I do see a lot of agents kind of falling into that, the watches, the cars, the everything like that. And if that's your true passion, totally cool. But I think for a lot of us, we just think that we have to act accordingly with that narrative. And I just don't believe that's the way we have to be. And I think for me, one of the big things was that I realized that the people who I was actually doing deals with, my friends and family, the people in my sphere, none of them dressed like that. None of them acted like that. So it wasn't true to who I was. And I'd fallen for this like hustle mode, beast mode, 24/7, can't stop, won't stop, all that stuff, where really like, that's not who I wanted to be. So right. It's definitely social media is definitely a trap. I think we definitely need it for our business. I certainly do. I'm on there every day, but you can't get sucked into that world. I think social media needs to be a projection of who you truly are and what you truly care about inside of doing business or doing whatever you're doing. But I think a lot of us fall into this like one path that we have to go down. And it's challenging and it's really hard to get out of that, actually.
It's just a double-edged sword. I mean, it's so many positives, but so many negatives within the social media world. So we just need to focus on the things that's positive that it can bring us, meaning attention and helping us grow our business. But we also need to not dwell in all the kind of chaos and all the illusions and things that we see on there. So you've done a really good job as far as like alignment goes, as far as your stage personality or your filming YouTube personality, and then how you are behind the scenes. They're very well aligned, meaning a lot of people meet people on social media. And then when they watch them on social media, and then when they meet them in person, they're completely different. And that misalignment creates a lot of conversion issues, for one, because people are thinking, oh my gosh, this person I thought I knew is completely different. So if you guys do have a different kind of delivery flow, which everybody does on social media at some point, you have to kind of find that stage personality. The more you can align both worlds, this consumer facing social media projection versus the reality of how you are behind the scenes, the easier it is to have conversions and also to have people stay in your life and have repeat business long term. Now, this is a big problem. You see like people posting pics like 4 a.m. I'm at the gym grinding. Yeah, maybe they were up one night at 4 a.m. and they did go that day at 4 a.m. But are they doing that every single day at 4 a.m.? Right. So it gets to a point where it's like, also we talk about self-esteem and how to build it. When we lie to ourselves, is we're also lying to the world when we're projecting something that we're not. And what happens is we start to realize that we're not this person and we're creating an illusion. And then it starts to break us down inside because we're like, well, this is who I wish I was, but I'm really this person. And then we're trying to paint the picture that we're this person. But the reality is we go home and we live in this body, and it does create emotional issues and self-esteem issues. But maybe give me an idea about, I've heard you talk about your pillars, maybe like your family, fitness, and all those. Kind of go over kind of the main focuses of your life that you focus on, and kind of we'll walk through some work-life, family life balance type of things that you've been able to accomplish.
For sure, so for me, I'm in a mentorship program called Wake Up Warrior, and the things we focus on are the 4 B's. So body, being, balance, and business. And really everything in my life falls under one of those categories. So just breaking them down, body is obviously like your physical body, taking care of yourself, also nutrition, eating properly, and just we have this one vessel to take us through this life, and I just have to take care of it, because if this breaks down, everything else breaks down. And I've been super fortunate that I grew up in different sports and martial arts and stuff like that. So I've kind of had that underlying narrative from childhood. But still it's a work in progress. So body, that's the first one. The next one is being, and that's, it's more just like finding your purpose. It's like, what's the purpose here? Is it just to like crush real estate and make money? I don't think it is. I think we're here to do more than that. And that's one place where I really try and focus on. And a lot of that is like meditation and journaling and writing about this kind of thing, and about like who I want to be for my kids, for my wife, and for the agents I work with, even stuff like that. And then the next one is balance, which is family life, my family, my relationships, my friends, like actually putting work into that instead of that having been like an afterthought of the business. And then the last one is business. And funnily enough, that's the way it's laid out: body, being, balance. Last one is business. So business is, everything that we do inside real estate, in terms of deals, in terms of coaching, everything that we do within our brokerage. And so that's my 4 like pillars that I really focus on. And what I find is that they're all equal, like they're like legs of a chair. And if one of them is like really not like up to par, the rest of them really struggle. Like if I'm not centered with who I am, my mission, what I'm trying to do, who I'm trying to be, like it affects my family life. It affects like, all this other, why am I getting up at 5 a.m. to go and work out? Like, what's the point? If my body breaks down, I'm injured, I hate it because I can't play with my kids or whatever. So, if there's something going on with my wife and we haven't resolved it yet, then that affects my business, because the meetings I walk into, I'm not in a great space. And so every one of those pillars affects each other. So I do daily work for all of them just to kind of check things off the list. But that's like, that's really how I found my way into kind of the message that I preach to realtors of productivity now. So that's what I do.
So I've been using the word thought occupation expense a lot lately, just because I'm trying to explain to people that, we live in our mind, but we also have a physical body. But when let's say, for example, Louis grinding super hard, 16-hour days all day, every day, and then he goes and takes his family to Disney World. So now he's physically present at Disney World, but think about his thoughts. How often do you do this as an entrepreneur? Is your mind still back in the office? And so we're trying to be present with our family, but we're thinking about all the problems in our business. And then we're sitting in our business back at home, physical bodies in the business, but then we have our family. We have our kids' soccer team, our soccer games we're missing. We can't take the wife out. And how does that work out, right? Does that create some issues? But so has that been an issue for you personally? Like being present when you're in the opposite field, meaning you're trying to do the best, and we're always trying to have the balance. But when we're on one side of the balancing beam, we can't seem to get out of the thought process, focusing on what we're leaving behind. And I think this is a big problem for a lot of people when they try to remove themselves from their business and spend time, personal life, and friends and family.
Yeah, it's definitely a problem. And honestly, I don't think it's something that will ever go away. If you're really like an entrepreneur, if you're focused on that, like it's very hard to stop your mind racing on things. Because even like when I slow down for a minute and we go to Disneyland or whatever, if we're having fun or whatever, my brain in the back somewhere is still processing stuff, and ideas will pop out and stuff like that. So it's definitely a challenge. I still struggle with it, but I think because I know I do the daily work in all 4 of my things, I feel confident if I need to step away from the business, or I have systems in place that I have things set up to keep it on ice, for a period of time, I go away. Now, typically our family trips, we're typically gone for like 5 days kind of max. But Mackenzie and I, we both know, because she's a realtor too, we both know that things are going to come up. So it's like, okay, when we wake up in the morning, have coffee, check the inbox, do what you need to do. Okay, cool. And then the phone goes away. Maybe at lunchtime, you can pull it back out. If there's anything urgent, respond. So, and then at nighttime before bed or something like that. So we kind of set ground rules with each other, what that looks like. Because the fact of the matter is, if you're in real estate or you get into real estate, you know that clients have no boundaries, as much as we want them to. And in our field as well, Connor, same with agents. It's tough. Like if they have a fire that needs to be put out and they can't figure it out, they're relying on you to help them. It's very, very difficult to switch that off. So it's definitely an ongoing struggle. I think though, for us with Mackenzie and I, we've definitely accepted that with that struggle ultimately comes freedom at a larger scale. And I think that's a trade-off for us. I think that we know with the work that we do, with the things that we have to take care of, the bigger goals are going to come. We're going to be able to pay for college for our kids if they go to college. We're able to take trips. We're able to do what we want, and eventually, with our goals that we've set, eventually we'll be free financially. So, is that the question we just ask ourselves? Is like, okay, is that worth taking an hour of our day on vacation to take care of business, and then we can set it off? And for us personally, we think it is, just because we have that end goal in sight. But on the flip side, when the phone goes away, and that's it. Like, kids are like number one. Let's go have the best time ever. And I think setting up boundaries like that, and systems and stuff like that is super important. The last thing I would say on that as well, is that I think setting boundaries with clients and agents or whoever you work with, whatever field you're in, is the most important thing. I do that up front now. I'm fortunate where I'm in a place where I can do that. At the very, very start, you might not be able to. But with clients especially, I say, hey, listen, after 6 p.m. at night, only call me for emergencies only, like emergencies. And if it's not an emergency, we're not going to chat. We'll chat tomorrow. And also Sundays, I don't work on Sundays. It just is what it is. If you need to see homes, I'll get someone else to show you them. If a contract needs written, we'll figure that out. But I don't work Sundays, and it's my one day that I take. So I think setting boundaries and being okay with that is what you have to do, because we always talk about this, Connor, that if you're just redlining yourself the whole time, it doesn't work. There's a reason that NASCAR and Formula One have pit stops. You have to stop dead, like you stop, and then you refuel, and then you get back out there. So there's a reason that they can't just keep on racing around that track, for 4 hours, because the capacity of the engine and the gasoline and the oil is not there. It has to be refilled. So I think we have to do a better job of taking care of ourselves.
Yeah. And if you guys read between the lines, what he's talking about a lot is just strong communication skill sets, because him and his wife, and then also talking about, working with partners. He said in the beginning, he wasn't setting expectations. And then as he moved through his career, he started realizing setting the expectations up front and kind of controlling his time schedule, making sure they know what to expect. And this all has to do with communication and understanding that preparation leads to success. And if you don't prepare from the beginning, everything's messed up from the start. So everything needs to start from the beginning, because you don't want to try to get into the middle of a conversation or in the middle of working with a new partner a year in or 6 months in, and then try to figure these things out. But with your wife, one of the things that's important is the ability to have that mature, both understanding of this is a collective sacrifice that we're making. Because if you have someone that's pushing against you, now, if you're married, probably a little bit tougher situation to get out. But if you're in a strong relationship looking to get married, you need to really think about this. Does your partner support you, or do they push against you? Because this is a very big deal. And we're just think about that. We're not going to go down that rabbit hole right now. But I want to talk about the word balance, because you brought up that in the beginning, you couldn't do these things because you're just always working with clients. So balance is something that everybody has their own opinion on. I'll kind of give you my opinion in a second after I hear yours. But what's your take on balance? Is this something that you've been able to, do you think it's achievable, or do you think that it changes over time and you're always playing this balancing beam on where opportunity costs of where time goes versus where it goes to another opportunity?
I think it's an ongoing game. I don't think finding the perfect balance, I'm not sure if that's truly achievable. I think like you just said, I think that's the most important thing. If you have a partner, if you have a wife, a husband, whatever, if you're on the same page as them, the balance is almost like, for me, our business and our family are almost like one entity, because my wife and I know what we're doing, know what our goals are. Our kids know as well. They know what our goals are, what we're trying to do. So when it comes to that part of it, for me, it's less of like this work life balance. Like, okay, I work for 6 hours and I family for 4 hours, and I think that's extremely hard to do. But I think if the communication skills are there and you can truly like have everyone on the same page, I think it is achievable to have both things be on fire, your business and your family life at the same time. And I think that's what I've found. I had to find this out the hard way though, because I had business on fire like the first 2 years of real estate. And to be fair, like Mackenzie and I at that point were pretty much broke. Like we were living in her mom's basement. We had 2 kids, we had 2 dogs. It was a whole big thing. And I got into real estate, and we agreed like, hey, go, just do what you need to do. If it takes a year or 2, just do what you need to do. So we went with that narrative, and I went all in on the business. And thankfully, super blessed that I was really successful in those first 2 years. But that came with a price. And the price was that I woke up 2 years later in a panic attack, full-blown panic attack, because I felt like I was losing connection with my kids. And that was a real tough one. Because at that point, there is no balance. I'm just the dad who works and is never there, and who misses the games, and who doesn't have any input in the house. So, it's almost like they're being raised by a single mom, right? I'm here and there and everywhere, but I'm walking around like this, I'm just, whatever. Yep, sure.
And you told yourself you never do that either. And then
exactly. I told myself I would never do that, right? We all do. So I had to go on like another 2-year journey of figuring out like how to process this, how to actually do it, because the people who are at high level, who I want to like achieve this success that they've achieved, they have this stuff in place. You look at people like Tony Robbins, right? Obviously, extreme example, but that guy's busy, but his marriage seems to be rock steady, And I think, why is that? Well, it's because she's on the same page as him. They're on this journey together, and she's like, cool, like we're on the same page. Let's do this. And I think that makes a huge difference. So, what I started doing was letting Mackenzie more into like what was happening in the business. Like, here's what I'm doing, but then also setting boundaries with clients. So I had to do a lot of work, but that's really the kind of long-winded answer of, I think work-life balance is achievable, but I don't think it's what people think it is. I think they have to flow almost as one thing. If you truly want to be an entrepreneur and work for yourself, they have to almost like cross paths as you go along. That's probably my take on it.
Yep. So I didn't want to kind of like give my answer ahead of time, because it kind of like persuade people to bounce off my answer. But you kind of said it the way I would say it, which is, I'll say it this way: it's yes and no. Because in the beginning, there's no balance. Building a business, it is just grind, get that business off the ground, make sure it doesn't fall apart. And so like for me, there was zero balance like the first few years of my business. It was just maybe fitness and business, but there was no relationships, no time for anything. It was just, I have to get this done. Mm-hmm. And as the business got up and as it started to make money, and as things, the pressure of the business making money, now this opens up. Hey, now I want to have the balance. Now you want to start dating. Now you want to have, more time with the family. And so I think a lot of people in the beginning, you'll hear this, there's not a lot of balance in the beginning of a business. And then as you build a successful business, that gives you the ability to have a little bit more of a balanced life later, depending on which type of business you have, depending on how much it ties your time to it. But I've seen it kind of transition to more balanced over time. And also we just think about it and start strategizing, but also, just to retouch on communication, like he brought up that his kids understand their goals. And this is a big one, I think, because like the stress is that you don't want to let your kids down. He's feeling that pain, suffering, but by letting them know, now they know, oh, well, I get all these video games and I get all this stuff. If daddy works a little bit more, right? So so it's not just, hey, daddy's not here. The reason why daddy's not here is because we have this over here. So it's, I can give you more time, but you got to take all your bikes and your toys and stuff. Oh no, dad, go work a little bit now. Right. So it's kind of like,
I think as well, just kind of, I guess last thing I'd say about that as well is that like going into that hustle mode for those first 2 years and like really grinding 24/7, like sun up to sundown. I think one of the traps I fell into, which I think a lot of people do, was that I was telling myself that I was doing it for my wife and my kids. And at the start, it probably was. But once that money starts coming in, once you start buying new cars, all these things start to progress. If I really had a good, honest look at myself, I was doing it for myself. And they were benefiting from it. But I wanted the status. I wanted to make the money. I wanted to be the man. I wanted to be the guy in the suits and all that, who none of my friends were doing. Where I came from in the west of Scotland, no one's doing, So that pride thing kicked in for me. And that was another huge piece that I had to overcome when I switched everything up. So it's definitely another trap that I feel people fall into as well, especially if you've come from a place where you've never really made money before at all. Like I was in the fitness world before that, like you get paid buttons in the fitness game unless you're operating at a super high level. So my first year in real estate, I doubled what I'd ever made in fitness before. And I was like, oh my gosh. And then again, and it just kept on building. And all of a sudden, you have all this money that you've never had before, and you don't know how to act. And it changes you, and it's very, very odd. So I think that's definitely one thing that I think for new agents, if you're coming from another situation into this one, you start progressing, just check yourself from now and then, and really focus on what the goals are, and talk to your wife, talk to your kids as this is going on, instead of 2 years down the line, which is what I did.
Right. And it's just also like one thing, as you make that journey, you need to keep an awareness and remember the habits and patterns that you did things on, and the person you were, and the character, and how you lived your life. Because what I see a lot of times is we create the person through hard work and self-development, personal education. We create this person that it's our decisions, our morals, our values, and our ethics, and everything that this person is that creates a successful business. Now, the successful business creates a lot of money, which creates a lot of other opportunities for all the evil and all the negatives of the world, and all these other people that don't know us start slipping into our life. And so many times we were this person, it creates the business, and the business creates a different person. And now we have a monster to deal with, which is ourselves, and we're battling our ego, and we're battling, who we want to be, and we can even lose ourselves pretty quickly. And this is very difficult for people, especially the more meteoric the rise. So we've seen this happen. It's to a lot of people, including myself. It's a big battle all the time, which is to stay who I am. So this is something you need to keep into consideration, because in the next 3 years, you're already very successful, but like you're about to have massive success, and you will battle that all on that journey. And it's something that if you know it ahead of time and prepare for it, once again, preparation, the awareness of what we're going into, sometimes we know the battle that we're about to fight, we have a better chance to win it. But so maybe you want to talk on your ego a little bit. Has that been an issue? And then let's go into kind of like some real systems and time management techniques and things that you've used to free up time, because you're an expert using Google and the technologies and efficiencies and systems and things like that, which we'll go into. But how's that played into has that ego issues with your wife, and as you've grown and because she knew you before and now?
Well, yeah, I think what really helped with us is that we came from nothing together. Right. Now I shouldn't say that. So my wife is a platinum selling musician, so she's been on stage with a lot of big people, a lot of big names, that you guys would all know. But so when I moved here, I was getting my green card. We got married, but I was just riding her tailcoats, and as a man, that's challenging. It just is, and that's kind of hard to do to live off your partner. And so, when we started having kids and all that good stuff, like once I started making money, I was like, oh, okay, I'm the man now. I'm finally the guy. I'm the guy. I'm in charge here. I'm taking care of business. Like, you guys just wait for me. I'll figure this out. So that ego that creeps in, And then, all this money starts piling in through the business. And of course, I send money from the business to our personal account. So I'm in charge of finances now. I'm in charge. And this whole thing builds up, and it, like you said, you fall into those traps. Everyone's like, oh, you're the man. Like, realtors want to talk with you, meet with you. Lenders want to take you out to lunch. People want to have martinis at 6 p.m. instead of going home. And you fall into all that because it's the trappings of this industry. That's how we think business should be done. We all want to be luxury agents and all this stuff. So it's like, okay, I'll wear my suit and at lunch we'll go for drinks, and all. And it's like, it's crazy, but I fell head first into that because I was like, sure thing. I'm a people pleaser. So I'll say yes. I'll go as hard as you want to go. Like, no problem, and then get an Uber home. So yeah, the ego part definitely came into that. And, I was making more money than all of my friends. So it crept in there. I was definitely, I was never putting it in people's faces, but, I definitely didn't mind people knowing that I was making money now because I was always the one who never was making money. So that ego is it's a real thing.
How did that affect your friends and your family?
It definitely turned off a few people, and looking back on it now, it's definitely something that, I mean, I've dealt with it now. I'm good with, what happened in the past and stuff like that. But when I look back at myself, I'm like, oh my gosh, there was a, when you start making money and when you start having, more relationships and quote unquote power and all this stuff, like there's two ways you can go. You can use it for good in the world, or you can use it selfishly for yourself. And I was in the selfish boat. So I was paying for everyone's dinner and stuff like that, which in theory, you're like, oh yeah, no problem. And you're like, I'm cool, I'm a good guy. But really, you're making people feel kind of shitty sometimes when you do that.
Exactly.
So different things like that. And thankfully it didn't last for a long time because thankfully my wife puts me in my place very quickly when things like this happen. So I'm super fortunate. I think if I didn't have her, it might have spiraled a little bit out of control because the people that I was with and surrounding myself at the time are still in that mode. I see them now and then still doing the thing, and acting that way and all that stuff. And the relationships have soiled and different things have gone downhill. So thankfully I had Mackenzie to be like, hey, like what are you doing right now? This is not you. And I was able to put that in check. So yeah, again, it's money, right? I never had money before. And when you get money, like if you've never had it before, it's the most like exhilarating feeling. I did a lot of drugs when I grew up, and like having like 100 grand in your bank account for the first time is better than taking any drug. You're like, oh my gosh, like I have 100 grand in my bank. 50, yeah, like dude,
safety makes you feel safe.
Safety, yeah, safe, yeah, exactly, right, safety. And also like, oh, we can buy that, we can take this trip. And so it all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm the man, I'm good to go. But then, circumstances change, the market shifts, COVID happens. And then, all these different things, the relationships, the money, everything like that starts to dwindle away. So anyway, thankfully, like I said, Mackenzie's like a rock star. So she's just like, stop being a dick, I'm like, okay. So
I think it's, not that like, if you have someone that like, let's say you made your net worth and then you find your significant other afterwards, not that it can't work out, but what I've seen is that like a lot of times coming from your situation where like y'all kind of, let's say you're living on the streets together, homeless, and not saying that, but sure. Like when you came up that way and you had nothing and you were together when you had nothing, then you see like these relationships a lot more, I guess stronger when they handle a lot differently than when you made it, when you were that way before, and then you made it together as compared to you made it individually and then you met someone after you create your network, which is also for some of you guys can be a risk because now when you are meeting people and you're successful, you're like, okay, well, why is this person coming into my life? What is their motive? But one of the things that I did, and this is important, talking about the sensitivity of those around us. So you got to think about work life and family life, but also separation of those two as far as how you want to present yourself and how much you want to let that ego out. So for example, like in the business world, I tell people, you need to let everybody know there's no vanity issues. You should be telling everybody all your statistics as big and loud and proud as you can. It's not a bad thing to talk about your success in business because it leads to other business. So I was consulting one of the top mortgage brokers in the country, and she did like $10 billion in loans. And I was like, you're not telling anybody this on social media. You need to put this out there. Now that's in the business world. Now in the personal world, I told her, like, when you go around your friends and family around Christmas, what I do is I rarely talk about what I do. So this sounds crazy because like in the business world, everybody knows what I do. But around my family, around holidays and Christmas, when I go to my extended family, cousins and nieces and nephews and things like that, they don't even really know what I do. They kind of know Connor's in real estate, but they have no idea to the level of where I'm at, because almost everybody in my family, except for a couple of them, are 9-to-5 earners, and they don't run a business. And so I try to protect the relationships with them and not make them feel bad about themselves, and bring up the fact, that how well I'm doing financially, because it can cause problems within the family. And, but have you ever thought about that? Like your extended family, not just like your wife and kids, but like, and then did you, as you became more successful, did you keep a lot of your like high school and college friends, or I guess you probably moved over here from Scotland, or did you keep any of your current sphere of influence, or did you move up and start working more with other successful agents and those became your friends?
Yeah, honestly, I have a really small circle, and I did that probably over the last couple of years. I'm a serial people pleaser. So I would go and talk to anyone, hang out with anyone, spend time with anyone, and that gets you in trouble,
Yeah.
So I think actually when COVID hit, Denver, where I'm at, got shut down, and it was almost like a blessing in disguise. For me, I was like, okay, this is a time where I can reset a lot of things. I changed a lot of my business model at that point. We did a few different things, but one of them was like, I'm gonna minimize this circle that I'm in right now and just keep it to the mission. And I listen to a lot of Andy Frisella's podcast, and there's one where he's talking about anchors and propellers. If your life is a boat, you've got people on there. Some people are propellers who will help you, will push you forward, will cheer for you, will love seeing you be successful. And there's others who are anchors who will bring you down. And it's sometimes not that they're doing it on purpose, but just their negativity, their energy, like everything just brings you down. And if I knew that if I wanted to get to the next stage in life and be successful, I had to cut those anchors off. And so that's what that's what I did over the last couple of years, actually, and it's honestly been very freeing in a lot of different aspects. In terms of extended family and stuff like that, we don't talk about anything pretty much. They know we're in real estate, but I don't talk about it. I talk to my dad about money because he's an architect. He started his own business when he was about my age, so growing up, I saw him do that. So he's probably the only one that I talk like figures and numbers and money with, just because he understands kind of where I'm trying to get to. But that's about it. No one else really knows anything about kind of what we do.
And it's good to do that, by the way. It's not just that we're protecting, our family and friends to not feel bad and protect their emotions. You're also protecting yourself from future awkward situations, because as family and friends know that you have a decent amount of money, they look at you a lot differently, unfortunately. And they look at you as money, as a piggy bank that they can come to and borrow money from. So y'all need to start thinking about that. If you are in a trajectory where you're moving up in life, start thinking about how you want to play that play, because it can lead to a lot of problems. And then when you get into lending money to friends, family, and things like that, it can create a lot of issues. Now, also how Lewi's talking about how a sphere shrank. You've heard the term lonely at the top. As you become more successful, you're going to have fewer people around you. That's just how it is. You're going to have a massive network, meaning you're one text away from lots of people that will want to work with you and do stuff with you. But as far as proximity to close relationships, it's going to shrink as you become more successful. So we've touched a lot on this, and I think, this is all a very important topic, and I think it's probably helped a lot of people. Let's go into some things that you can do to free up time. because if we free up more time of the things that we're already wasting time in, now we have more time to share across the balance. So let's say we can become more efficient. We can streamline some things and cut out some extra hours. Well, if we didn't have any time to go coach a kid's soccer team, but now we're more efficient because we're using some technologies or systems, we may have freed that time up. So it's not just a decision, opportunity cost, where to go. It's also, can we create more time? Now, you're an efficiency expert, I would say, and you're, especially on your YouTube channel, which I'll let you plug here in a second. You've got a lot of great videos on these types of things. But maybe you want to talk about some of like the main things that you've used, all the Google tools, or if you want to go that, or really you tell me what you think has helped you the most with your efficiency and with your time management behind the scenes.
Yeah, 100%. And even it's funny, we're doing coaches, we're doing a productivity month with the agents I work with right now, and I'm taking them through this. But there's a lot of tools and technology and apps and all that kind of stuff out there can help you, and I like a lot of those. But really, it all boils down to like figuring out your priorities, B, what tasks those priorities involve, and then see what you should be doing and what you shouldn't be doing, and then you can start scheduling. So the big one for me that I start everyone on is the Eisenhower matrix. And if you've never seen that before, it's a simple four boxes. The top left box, the top left quadrant is important and urgent. The top right, the second quadrant is important and not urgent. The third quadrant down there is not important but urgent, and then the last one is not important and not urgent. So what I tell people to do a lot of the time, like when I first start coaching them or working with them, is take your week and just start writing down everything that you do. I mean, everything. And it can be tiresome, but it'll, in the long run, it will help. So like everything in your business, everything with your family, everything, all the stuff you're doing. And then you can start to take that list and put it into these boxes, because I'll have a video about this in the next week here. But basically what you're doing is you're taking those tasks and putting them in which priority they need to be done. So that top left box are things that you need to do like today. These are tasks that I need to get done right now, and only I can do them. The second box on the top there are things that you can like put off, like they have to be done for you to get to your goals, but they don't have to be done right here, right now. So that might be like, I want to build out an open house strategy to get more clients. Okay, well, you don't have to do that right today, but it does have to get done. And then like putting things into the third box are, for me, outsourcing things. What can I outsource? What can I give to a VA? What can I give to my TC? What are things that I don't personally have to be doing that I can outsource? And then the last box is stuff just to get rid of out of your life, like social media scrolling, like spending endless hours on Netflix or whatever that looks like. So the whole crux here is to figure out what you do week to week, and really what things you don't need to be doing, what things you shouldn't be doing, and what things you don't need to do right now. And then you can actually start prioritizing them. So the Eisenhower matrix is a simple free tool. You can just Google it and pull up a picture or whatever. And it can be a real game changer to figure out where your priorities are and what you should be working on from day to day.
Well, and this, once again, we were talking about this earlier, preparation, meaning a lot of people, they wouldn't want to do that, right? Because they're like, well, I have to take this time to go do this and do that. It's just, but then they're thinking it takes time to do it. But what you're really doing is you're saving time. And this is what people don't think about, because get what it was and what study it was. I read something that if you spend 1 hour every minute you spend preparing ahead of time, it saves you between 7 to 11 minutes on the back end. Wow. So let's say like he spends his time putting everything, planning a schedule. Well, that's a time expense to most people. Like that doesn't make sense. Same thing with the gym. Well, I don't have time to go to the gym. Well, think about if you go to the gym every day, the back end time relationship, I mean, you have more energy, live longer. Like there's also, we do a fitness. So preparation is huge when it comes to saving time in the future. But so when it comes to like systems and things like that, you do everything with like technology wise, or you have a kind of crazy system like I do where it's like, color coded. You have things visual.
That gives me anxiety. That gives me so much anxiety. Yeah, I use certain apps that help me. I use like Asana for my VAs to have all their tasks and management systems in there. A lot of my stuff is inside Notion, which is a really great tool that I keep all my stuff in. So typically mine is all digital, just because I like to work on things and I can pull out my phone over there and work on them again. But the one thing I do have, which is on paper, is the power list. So I use a power list every day, which is like the 5 items that are going to be, 1% items to get me to the next day. So what gets me 1% closer to my goals? Write down 5 tasks, and then I'll cross them off as I go. And I love that one, because the biggest problem that I feel agents have is that we have to do everything all the time right now. Respond to every email immediately, pick up the phone all the time, and you're just putting out fires, and we don't have the capacity to do that. So really, I like to do deep work, where if I'm going to work on something, so it could be whatever, if it's doing a CMA for your client, or preparing for an open house, or whatever it is, the task you might have, I shut everything else off. I close all the different windows, all the different browsers, and I put things on do not disturb, and I'll just work on that. And it's like, what's the other theory about how much time you spend on something? Not Parkinson's law.
The Parkinson's, Pareto's.
Is it Parkinson's? I think it's Parkinson's.
Yeah, I think it's Parkinson's law. Yeah.
So it's like, if you have a task and you dedicate 1 hour to it, it's going to take you 1 hour to do it. But if you dedicate 20 minutes to it, it'll take you 20 minutes to do it, right? So so I use that a lot, and I'll just like shut everything off, because if I'm going to do a CMA, right? CMAs are very simple to do, but you have to put care and effort into it. So it might be like 20 minutes, right? That if I close everything off and sit down and work on it, I'll bust it out in like 15 to 20 minutes. But if I have all my other browsers open, my text, my email browser, everything else, Facebook, Instagram, they're all dinging away and sending me notifications, that could take an hour, because I'll get distracted by something else. I'll pull it up. I'll start responding to a message. Okay, I'll go back to this. All of a sudden, my focus is left. So I might make a mistake and stuff. For me, it's concentrating the effort on the things I'm trying to do. And I honestly, that is probably the biggest hack for me, because I'm a space cadet like I am. My brain is that brain where it's all over the place. And if it has an opportunity to see it, if it has an opportunity to see a shiny object, it'll dive straight over there. So the more I can shut out and just focus single track on what I'm doing, I'll get it done quicker. I'll get it done to a better quality. And the end result will be much better, because I can get so much more done in my day than most people. And I think that's, again, part of this whole balance thing, is that I know that, by 6 p.m., I can probably do more in 4 hours than most people can probably do in 8 to 12.
Right.
Not because I'm special, because of the way I work. And that's the biggest thing for me, like shutting down everything and focusing on what I'm trying to do.
That's right. And we're just kind of bring it full circle. At the beginning of the podcast, we're talking about being present. When you're at the office, be present. When you're at the family, be present, because it's when we're not present, when we're supposed to be doing one thing, but our mind's occupied on other things that create that inefficiency, or where we're not being the most efficient possible. Now, when we're talking about setting a deadline to fill that gap, this is why it's so important when you guys set goals. If you think about, if you've read Think and Grow Rich and Napoleon Hill, and with a definite purpose, it's not just here's my goal. It's has a date to it, a deadline to it, because that creates the way we don't have time to go into, but the way our mind works, it's going to force activity to hit that goal within that time frame. So if you leave open-ended goals, well, how fast do you want to hit your goals? Quick, long? Your brain just not going to know. But if you know you have a deadline, it's going to force the attention on that deadline, which means you're going to be more focused on it. And then Lewi is 100% right. If you guys forget what it is, but you guys have probably experienced this if you read a book, where like you open the book up, you can hear noises, birds outside, and all this type of stuff. And then all of a sudden you absorb yourself. Your mind comes into a level of focus with where you're in the book or inside the movie, or at a movie theater where you're not hearing anything else. That's where your brain's at the highest level of focus. Now, one text message comes in, It shifts that frequency. Now you're not in that level of focus. And I think it takes, forget, a study somewhere like 9, 10 something minutes like that. I think I'd read for your brain just to get back into that level of focus. So that's why it's so important to have task separation and turn your phone off and turn everything off. And I tell people it's not rude to not pick up. It's only rude to not call back, meaning don't be a reactionary business owner. If someone calls you, unless it's priority and like you have to pick it up, don't pick it up because they called you. Pick it up when you're ready to call them back, unless it has time sensitivity to it. But to call them back, that's why it's rude. But if you're constantly answering an email because an email comes through, as you get busy, you're going to have emails come through all day. If a message comes through, a text message, and you're answering it, you're losing money. Do it when it's on your schedule, not on theirs. They're reaching out to you. They should wait on you for you to get back to them because they contacted you. But it is a big deal. And especially as you want to scale, you have to kind of take this hard line, unfortunately, if you're a business owner. Now,
and these are built to distract you. Like,
for sure.
That's the honest truth of it. So the only things that ding here are texts and calls for me. And when I put it on, when I'm working, I put it on do not disturb. The only person that can get through to me is Mackenzie. No one else does.
TikTok's not distracting, Louis. It's not. It's Instagram? Nah. But that's why, I mean, think about it. Why is everybody moving to short form content?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's how our brains are working. They're all over the place and we're bouncing around. And the world's a battle of attention right now. And it's getting harder and harder as more short form content and more, dopamine releases and all these quick fixes and all these pleasures of the flesh. You can go to the gas station, get a Red Bull. You can go anywhere and get, it's just so much everywhere. And this is also why when you have money, it creates all this. There's my light. About to end the show now because we got my light going out. But as we wrap this up, we're coming to the end of hour. I think there's a lot of good stuff in here that I think is going to help a lot of people, and they're going to resonate a lot with it. Now, how do they come work with you, or how do they follow you? I know you're doing a lot on social media. You got your YouTube channel out there. We'll put in the description for you as well. YouTube, Instagram. That's the easiest places to get me. Just at Lewi Gault. LEWIGAULT. And that's it. If you have any questions on this stuff, this is this is what I do all day. I love this stuff. So if you have any questions, if you have issues, if you're going through stuff like that and just can't figure it out, get in touch. I'm always happy to help. Yeah, Lou's done a really good job helping a lot of his agents through these situations that they're dealing with. So when you've not had the right practices and then you learned and you figure out how to have the right practices and then you have an organization, then you can help your partners learn the mistakes that you've already gone through. So I recommend, if you guys haven't ever had a conversation with Lewi and you're thinking about potentially looking at EXP, reach out to him for sure. I think he can show you everything he's got behind the scenes going on. And if I need to be on that call, Lewi, just let me know. But other than that, guys, check him out. I'll put all Lewi's description or links in the description box below. And other than that, anything else? One last little message? Anything you want to leave him with? No, just keep it real. I love what you're doing, Connor. I love this channel. I think this is very, very important to take topics like this that aren't just sales, lead generation, focused like that, because we're real people. Like I said, realtors just one of your identities, but you have to pay attention to everything else. So I think this channel is super important. And I appreciate you having me on, man. Thank you. Well, thanks, man. And it is a battle. Are we becoming cyborgs, as Elon Musk would say? Which is the only difference between a human and a cyborg is the phone's not attached to your body yet. So I don't know what your take is on that, but the world's moving that way. It's a little scary, but we'll leave that for the next podcast. We'll get Lewi back on here, guys. And thanks for sharing all that, Lewi. I know some of that's personal, and you didn't have to. So I know it helped a lot of people, because anytime people are vulnerable and share stuff about their own personal life, it hits harder emotionally for those watching around. But I'll get this out. And on that, Lewi, thank you, and grateful to have you as a friend and partner. And I'll see you all on the next one, I guess. Cool. Okay, cool. Awesome. Good job, man. I'm going to redo the intro because I'll make it work a little better. But sure. That's good. I think people are so used to hearing just vanilla stuff, like how to optimize videos and how to do marketing and stuff. They want to know more life and stuff like that. Yeah, it just relates more. It's like, hey, it's okay if you're struggling. Like, we all struggle. Don't stress. Cool. There's other people out here who have maybe come through this and got past it. And I think that's why you resonate so much with people, is that you were here, then you were here, then you got back to here. It's like, oh shit. It's not just that you went one direction up and it was like, cool, I'm awesome. You went all the way up and then all the way back down and then all the way back up again. It's like, there's not a lot of stories like that, I was used to going broke, playing poker. So I went broke. But it does, when people are going through adversity, they live in their own mind. So they feel the world's after them because it's their problem. So let's say they came down with a health issue, or, they're getting like, they feel the world is out to get them, or they're cursed. But when they realize that everybody has similar problems and everybody's gone through similar things, and they all, I have these same problems with my family, or I have the same problems with my family, my business, it starts to let people realize they're not alone. And that, like you're saying, that their story that they watched ahead of time turned it around. So therefore I can find myself within that story. So as you're building your business right now, as your agents are watching, they're watching your story. So just like how like you saw me and Mike, like it's going to be that flip way, all these agents coming up. So just start thinking. So I say everything's a hierarchy pattern: freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, private to general. So you're moving, I'd say you're like moving into like the third level here. And so as you kind of move through the levels, you'll feel the change. Be aware of those levels as you go through it, so that later you know how to kind of emotionalize and kind of know what they're all going through at their levels of their journey, and that's going to help them pull through those kind of mindset blocks and things like that. But cool,
sure.
Appreciate you, man.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. That was awesome. Let's do more. I love these conversations. All right, brother. I appreciate you, man. Thanks, Connor.
Have a good weekend.
Have a good one. See you, buddy. Bye.
Okay, cool.